Yeah, it's been so long since the Jets made the playoffs. I was hosting NFL Total Access the last time that happened, and joining us here on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line after getting my attention. He had me at hello with that statement on NFL Total Access last night from NFL Network and longtime quarterback in this league, David Carr. How you doing, David?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Well, you know what, David, I'll be honest. I helped create and get off the ground NFL Total Access so analysts like you can have salient points like the one that you made last night. I'll be very honest with you,
David. You
David.
gave us the freedom to do that, and I appreciate that.
All right. Okay, I appreciate the sentiment and the shout out, but I'll give you the floor on put a little bit of meat on the bones on saying that the Jets are going to make the playoffs, David.
Well, I mean, if you don't have hope at this point, I mean, what do you have? So I think that there's always a glimmer of hope for every team. But when you really come down to it and you look at the league, and you know this as well as anybody, it never goes how we planned. And, yeah, you could say – it's easy to say, okay, the Jets make a little bit of a jump. And I kind of hear that. I hear, okay, maybe they'll win 7 or 8 games. And maybe they will. But when I look at it, I like to see trends. And you can look at young quarterbacks and young head coaches, and you can see a pattern developing. So you look at Zach Wilson. And I love Zach. I think he's an incredible talent. I love watching him throw the football. There are few guys that I actually get excited about watching on tape, and Zach is one of them. And so he has all that ability, and he's aggressive. So he's going to make some turnover-worthy plays, but he's also going to make some big plays, and he's young. And what I loved about what the Jets did is they didn't babysit him. They didn't hold his hand through the season. I mean, there were different quarterbacks that were rolling in there, like, okay, we're going to compare you to these veteran guys and some of these guys that have played football before, and you're going to have to do the things that are necessary to win football games. We're going to ask you to make big throws on third down. We're not going to ask you to just, throw the ball 3 times and win a football game. That's not how they handled Zach, and I loved watching it. I mean, when he came back from his injury, I thought he played fantastic, albeit what was around him. I mean, he had some guys that were hurt. When he came back, now some of the guys that could normally be thrown to weren't out there, So I look at the offensive line and what they could be healthy. Vera Tucker, I thought, played as good as anybody in the league. You go out and you sign Lincoln Tomlinson and you have Becton. That could be a solid offensive line. And then not even counting, adding Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson and C.J. Uzomah and Tyler Conklin. I mean, there's some good football players that have joined this team. And that's not even counting the defensive guys. And I love Robert Saleh. I think Robert Saleh is a fantastic human being, fantastic coach. I knew him when he was a quality control guy in Houston with Kyle Shanahan on that staff. And that's where they kind of hit it off. And they obviously work together at San Francisco. But Robert cares about every individual in that building, and so guys feel that is not a question mark for me as far as building a young team. I guess all that to be said, they have a lot of young talent that doesn't even know that they shouldn't go to the playoffs next year.
So they could be one of those teams where the players don't know what they don't know, and that can actually be to their benefit. Of course, timing's everything, David. So it would be just the Jets' luck that they get all of these young kids to start playing so well and start to gel behind a head coach who's talented enough to corral it. And it's the deepest the conference has ever been. That's another challenge that a team like the Jets, or let's just say the Dolphins, put it all together in that division. How are you even going to crack the top 7, right? I mean,
there's no doubt. There's no doubt. I mean, you look at their first 10 games that they have to play. I mean, this is like the NFL is just out to get the Jets, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is like several years in a row where they've not been favorable. I mean, they play the entire AFC North. They got to play the Dolphins, the Packers, they're playing the Patriots, the Bills. Obviously, their own division is going to be tough. But I don't know. I really think that when you have a young team like this, I mean, just look at it's happened in the recent past. You look at like 2018, the Texans were like 4-12. They ended up going 11-5. Like, no one saw that coming. The Jags did something like that, 2017-ish. I mean, it was Blake Bortles, and they went from like 3 wins to 10-6. Like, who saw that? And you know what that was? That was like there were defensive there was a defensive coach, which I think Robert Saleh, this is a great pairing because I love his offensive system that he has with LaFleur. I think he'll get better as a play caller. He obviously was a young guy doing that last year, so he'll improve. I love the system, but I think that you had Solomon Thomas, you had some of the pieces on the defensive side. They didn't play great towards the end of the year on defense, but they will play better. Robert will put together a great defense. And so those kind of jumps happen. They just randomly happen. So it doesn't – I mean, it's not like something that you're going to say, you're not penciling in the Jets for 12 wins. But you know what? They could do it. They could easily do it because that kid is fearless. Zach Wilson is absolutely fearless. So, for me, I'd roll the dice, and that's why I said what I said the other day. I mean, it was Joe Namath, and it was we were talking about how he guaranteed the victory, and I just said, you know what, the Jets are. I've been high on the Jets since the draft, obviously since watching their young players play. I love Robert Saleh, and maybe I'm a little biased there, but I like a lot of their pieces. So I'm excited to watch them play football this year.
David Carr, my colleague from the NFL Media Group, NFL Total Access, 11-year vet in the NFL, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So we just talked about how deep the AFC is this year. No deeper pool than the AFC West. Easily the toughest division in football now that Russell Wilson is there and so many other new additions from Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson. And we all know how many people have entered this division. Kansas City, less Tyreek Hill, but so on and so forth. They have gotten a ton of talent on their team. That said, David, do you know who I have chosen to beat all of them in the AFC West this year? Are you aware of that?
If we're vibing the way I think that we are talking about the Jets, then I'm going to hope that you're speaking about a team in Las Vegas.
I am speaking about a team in Las Vegas, and I've gotten a ton of crap for it. But
I got any crap last night for putting the Jets in the playoffs, Rich.
You know what? I don't know if we understand if we knew we're scratching each other's backs in a way, David, but we kind of are, because I do love the addition of Chandler Jones to go with Max Crosby, and then Davante Adams to hook up with your brother again. It's such a rarity to have a quarterback wide receiver relationship that's new but not new at all, right? So
it's so rare, and it's been something that they've tried to make happen for 5 years now, since Davante signed his contract extension several years ago with the Packers. Derek was pushing to get him there, and Davante was really close, man. I mean, that a couple years ago they were really close to making that happen, and so for it to actually happen, I remember I was actually sitting on set at the NFL Network when it went through with James Jones, and James was obviously sad because he's a Packer,
right?
But it was almost surreal because, like you said, it never really happens that you absolutely get to pull off something like this, where guys that have known each other since they were essentially teenagers get to play, and obviously have gotten to the points they've gotten in their career and now find themselves back together. I look at the Raiders, and to kind of validate your point, when I try to look at them, just objectively, like how is this going to work out? And from a quarterback standpoint, I always look at matchups. That's what this league is, and we hear that all the time. But literally, that's what it comes down to. And so you already have, and Foster Moreau said this to me the other day. He was out here working out with some of the kids in our high school team, and he was out on the field right here, about 100 feet where I'm at. And he said, you already have two guys that are basically unguardable, Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller. Like they create the unique matchup issues for the defense. And now you add Davante Adams. How do you cover them down? So that's the main issue. And Derek's as good as anybody. If he has a quality that is elite, for me, it's the ability to recognize what the defense is in, what they're trying to do, and get the ball as quickly as possible to his best matchup. And that's what he does. And now he's loaded with an offensive play caller. That's all they've done for 20 years is find matchups and exploit them. So I don't necessarily see a situation where the Raiders are going to go into a game and not have a favorable matchup on the outside. So anything can happen. The trenches, obviously, Khalil Mack and what the Chargers have done up front. I mean, they're formidable, so they're going to have to protect. But I mean, from a just a player standpoint, I love their chances against anybody.
So why does your brother and Davante Adams vibe so well, do you think? I mean, because again, you knowing their history and how much they mean to each other personally, you might have been one of the few people not totally shocked that Davante Adams leaves Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers in back-to-back MVP seasons to go to a totally new spot. So fill in some of the blanks if you don't mind.
No problem. I mean, well, I think that from the moment that they got together in Fresno, it was a unique situation because Davante came to Fresno and visited there and basically signed with Fresno State because of Derek. And so from the moment that they met on his recruiting trip, they hit it off. They just have a unique bond, and they're best friends. And Davante, even before they made the move to Vegas, so first of all, in the Bay Area, he bought a house right next to Derek. They worked out in the off season. They trained together, even when Davante was in Green Bay. Same thing. Derek moves to Vegas. Davante moves to Vegas. And this was about a month before the whole thing went down where he joined up. So they've just had a unique bond. They've always gotten along well. I mean, and then the chemistry on the field is I think the biggest thing. So there's guys that are quarterback friendly from a wide receiver perspective. There's guys that you like to throw to. But then there's like this different level that these guys have always had. And I asked Derek after their first workout as official teammates again in Las Vegas. He's driving back home, and they're both in the car together. They FaceTimed, and so I said, "How'd it go?" And Derek's like, "Every ball is 6 inches in front of his chest. It's just a natural thing." So he understands Davante. They also share that affinity for Davante is very confident. He's a very confident receiver, and Derek, every receiver that Derek has ever talked to me about, he's compared to Davante Adams. Every receiver, he's like, he does this like Davante. It's always been that way. So I think that's the biggest thing. They have affinity for each other's ability. Derek loves Davante's athleticism. Has always felt like he's hands down the best receiver he's ever played with. He's said that since he was 19 years old. And it hasn't changed a decade later. So I'm excited to see these guys play together, man. It's gonna be a lot. I'm excited for the country because when they're at Fresno, a lot of people saw him play, but I'm excited for the actual NFL family and community to get a chance to watch these guys because it's gonna be a blast.
Wow, David Carr here on the Rich Eisen Show. All right, before I send you on into your day, I want to hit you on something that we started our show with because of the match that's going down today, Brady and Rodgers versus Allen and Mahomes, and I ranked them 1 through 4 for their careers, and you could pretty much guess how that list goes, but it totally jumbles when you just put it in the box of the quarterback you want for 2022. This is the QB that if you could choose, and rank them 1 through 4, a quarterback to win football games in 2022, how would you rank Allen, Mahomes, and Brady and Rodgers in order? David Carr, how would you do that?
Okay, so I'm going to just rank them based on the situation that they find themselves in.
Okay,
if that's fair. Okay, so I will say that it's really difficult not to put Tom Brady, and so I will put Tom Brady at number 1 because I think that if his wide receiver group was healthy, I think that Rams game is different. I think with the fact that Bruce Arians is no longer there, I honestly believe that might free them up a little bit to do more of what Tom wants to do. I think when you have 3 guys looking at the game plan, I think that's a little bit too much. So I like Brady a lot going out the way he wants to go out with a healthy group. I like Todd Bowles on defense. So I'm going to say Brady 1. I'm going to say Josh Allen 2 because I think his skill set is just unique to even anybody on this list. And that's hard to say because these guys are pretty good football players, but Josh Allen is in a different class with as far as what he can do with his legs, his ability to release the football instantaneously, have that on the sideline at whatever depth he wants. It's ridiculous to me to watch him. From the moment I was standing on the field in Indianapolis watching him at the Combine, I've seen him throw when he was 16. I was blown away at that moment. I've been blown away every time I watch this guy. Talk about guys like that you want to watch play football. He's right there. And then I would say Pat Mahomes. And I think he's going to have to reinvent himself this year without Tyreek Hill there. But I think that it's a perfect time for him to do that because what we've seen Patrick do is fail a little bit at the end of the season where he tries to do too much. You can remember the images of him running around, going basically backwards against Cincinnati late in the game, almost losing the game. That you can see moments in the Tampa Bay Super Bowl where he tries to do too much. And obviously his offensive line was in shambles at that point. But I think for him, this moment where Tyreek's not there, his kind of bailout, just let me make it happen with this guy, isn't there. He's going to have to play inside Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy's system a little bit more. I think it's actually going to benefit him. And then fourth would have to be Aaron, because I'm concerned about Aaron because of the guy that we just talked about, Davante Adams. And it takes Aaron a long time. You can say that he turns guys that aren't first-round picks into great receivers, and I would not argue that. I would agree with you. I would argue that it takes time. And I don't know that that's something that they have the luxury of waiting for. I think that he's going to have to step on the gas. I don't know that he necessarily – he's not even in camp right now, which maybe that's a common thing. But I think that he's going to have to step on the gas of trust and, with a trust tree and really trust these guys. That's not something that he's historically done with young receivers. You look at Davante's numbers with him. I think he had 400 yards his rookie year. And Davante's arguably the best receiver in the league. So that's going to be interesting for me. But that's probably how I'd rank him from my perspective.
Yeah, wow. I mean, the 45-year-old guy at 1 and then the back-to-back MVP at 4. That's pretty fascinating. I mean, but, I had it Allen, Brady, Rodgers, Mahomes. It's hard to
argue it. I mean, it's just the situations are kind of what I look at, because all those guys, you take all those guys in the game.
Of course. No, I know this is sports talk radio fodder. I mean, on June 1st, man. Sure. I mean, when the best football players at their positions arguably are playing golf. But, it is something to just chew on, because you do have to wonder which guys' abilities to just put the team on their shoulders, on their backs at the end of a game based on their current situations, and who has the ability to do that. To me, the fact that Josh Allen could have room for improvement, not just because of who he is, but that Gabriel Davis is now at the forefront of his profession, I think, and James Cook got drafted. I mean, that's insane. That's absolutely insane.
He's an incredible. He's from this area. He's from Central Valley.
Right.
I've known him since he was a little guy. Not a little guy anymore, but I mean, freakish arm talent. Like we say that a lot. We throw that around a lot, but it's not even close. The guy throws the ball as well as anyone I've ever seen.
David, thanks for the time, man. Thanks for the time. Look for more of my calls. I'd love to have you here in studio if you can shake free of any of your commitments, family or otherwise. Okay?
Yeah, I'd love
to have it.
I'd love to.
Thanks again, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks for the JETSLOVE. Appreciate it.
You got it.
That's David Carr right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.